What is up, y'all? This is Sunny King Criterium Cat 23 2022. We got myself, Jordan, Zach, Alex, and Rob in this race. Spoiler alert, huge crash in this race. Wanted to put it up top to get it out of the way. I'll talk about it at the end, but there's a lot of other good content from this race that I want to go through in the meantime. This was the first race of the American Crit Cup, the new national series, so we had a good turnout for this. We had about 50 or 60 riders start in our field. With that in mind, I wanted to start pretty close to the front. Not that I was going to animate things really early on, but I just wanted to make sure I had good position and I wasn't picking my way through. I've definitely had the experience in this race where I started too far back, and then I was basically jumping group to group as people were falling off the back. You can just get caught in the washing machine effect at the back of the race, and you'll see in the wide shot up top right as things start to string out. I mean, it'll get to a point where on these long straightaways, there's almost a 10 or 20 second gap just from the back of the group to the front of the group. In the wide shot, you can see me kind of moving right to set this turn up wide. This is the bush I always talk about. I talked about it in my video last year, but basically after that bush, I want to swing out to the right a little bit and start kind of claiming my space out here so that I can take this turn as wide as possible. So this is corner 3. This is the crucial spot on course where you can lose a lot of momentum and end up wasting a ton of watts if you do it wrong. So my strategy on this one is to pretty much always take it a little wider than everybody else. That gives me room to continue moving forward even if other people are braking, and I can take it a little bit faster but end up in the same spot in the group because I'm taking a longer line. And I know taking a longer line is not necessarily normally the racing move, but in this case I want to take a longer line to preserve my momentum into this uphill out of corner 4. It is so much easier to stay fast up this hill every time if you're carrying the momentum you built up on that downhill as much as possible through corners 3 and 4. So that's kind of always my move through there. I will say this year, because of the wind, it was insanely windy. It's a tailwind right now. It'll be a headwind when we're going back down the hill. Corner 3 wasn't quite as buck wild as it has been in previous years. We're going straight into a headwind on the downhill. Good move from these two riders. These guys were racing really smart. I don't know much about this team, but perfect move. Have your teammate set in a false tempo and send something up the road. Since that is such a good move, I probably need to explain why I'm not jumping on it immediately, and that brings me to our team plan. So Skyway Domestique has a lot of guys in this race, but our team plan is basically for the first 10 minutes, just everybody kind of try to find the rhythm of this group, find where you want to be in the corners, just settle in. The first 10 minutes, a break rarely goes in the first 10 minutes and sticks at this race. It was a little different today in some of the earlier races because of the wind, but I figured this field would just be too motivated and there were too many of these small 2 and 3 man teams that are really motivated to chase everything down. But that's kind of also what we're trying to gauge in that first 10 minutes is who's trying to chase. So really spend that first 10 minutes just figuring out who's who, figuring out where you want to be in the bunch, figuring out the places to move up, the places you're losing wheels. And I figured we would also have some attrition in that period as well. You kind of got to see how it shakes out and figure out who's having good legs on the day. And then from there, I wanted us to be a little bit more aggressive, especially marking things in the sort of 10 to 40 minute zone. And then after that, I was going to try and hook up with Alex and either me lead Alex out or Alex lead me out in the end. Lead out is probably not actually the right word. More just we would have gotten together and one of us would have sacrificed on the last lap to position the other one. And that can look a lot of different ways, but it probably wouldn't have been just getting a good turn of speed for the other one to sprint off of because of the tailwind and the uphill. It's not really a lead out E course, but on the downhill into the headwind, you could do a lot of work for a teammate by just pulling out of this pace line and doing a hard turn into the wind so that they can slot back in close to the front before corner 3. That would really probably have been the move. I say would have been the move. As you saw earlier, that's not exactly how the finish went down. There were a lot of these little one-man moves, like you see the guy in the wide shot off the front solo early on in the race, and Rob from our team goes to the front to keep it fast and keep us close to this guy. It was kind of our responsibility to some degree to at least be contributing riders to the chase since we had some numbers. There were a lot of like 2, 3, 4 maybe even man teams, but I think we might have had the numbers off the line. But yeah, this was just a good move from Rob not to let one of these get out of sight, out of mind, even though this was really early in the race. So that solo rider was off the front for a few laps, but we are about to make contact. I had taken a couple of pulls, Rob had taken a couple of pulls, but we'd both gotten shuffled back a little bit by a surge, and as we make contact here, I know that I need to get back into good position in case a counter goes. So I move over here to this right side I've been talking about. Even before the bush, I want to kind of be right here so I can continue to move out right if I need to and just keep moving up. And watch how many spots I get back by just not braking here. So basically I was like 20 wheels back at the top of this, and I'm back in contact with the front, back where I'm not at the front, I'm not doing work in the wind, but I could respond to an attack if it went now. And if somebody decided to really surge and it split, I would be on the correct side of it. I'm trying to make sure our team always has someone who's within striking distance of the front for whatever reason. If we want to cover an attack, if we want to bring an attack back, if you want to affect the race in any way, you got to have someone who can do it from the position they're in when things happen. For example, this Brooklyn rider on the right and Michael Zinkin on the left here snap hard enough to get across to Andrew Sparks from Automatic. That would be a pretty good group composition. We want to have somebody in that, so I got to jump on it. Or that one has been caught, countered, we've reshuffled, and we're doing it again. So here goes Zinkin, and then we've got a few others to try to jump, so I got to get on that. This one wasn't quite as crazy, like 600 watts for a second, and then hold it strong up to corner one and hold a lot of speed through it, but not quite the spike the other one was. But we got to stay with these moves. We got to have at least somebody up here in striking distance. When it strings out like this, all it takes is one guy losing the wheel, and then suddenly the people who just happen to be the first 5, 6, 7, 8 guys just become the breakaway. And when that happens, especially at this point in the race when things have been going hard for a while, it tends to be some of the stronger guys that are up there, and then you got a strong breakaway. They got a gap almost for free because someone behind just let the wheel go, and that's when it gets really dangerous. So gotta stay with it, gotta keep going hard up here. Cool drone shot in the top right. This was pretty sweet from the race organizers. Jump into the back half of the race, we got Rob from our team on the front. He just pulled back one of those little one-man moves. There's been a ton of that, and Rob is still setting tempo on the front as we get $100 preem called when we're coming through the start-finish on this lap. We've had a lot of aggressive racing, a lot of preems called. Watch as everything slows down right here. Instead of grabbing a handful of brakes, I just kind of jump off onto this little shoulder and then hop back on. You can see it in the wide shot, but not necessarily advocating for that line, but I'm just saying that it is there and it is open, and if you feel pretty confident, I mean, I can bunny hop barriers on a cyclocross bike, so just getting over that tiny crack in the road is not gonna phase me. I will say that if you can't do that, if you don't feel comfortable doing it, you could get your wheel caught like people get caught in the train tracks or whatever. The crack is sort of running parallel to where we're going, so you could get your wheel caught in there and it would not be great. But I felt better about that than I did about grabbing a handful of brakes, especially knowing that the preem is coming up. I'm trying to just kind of set up. I don't know if I'm going to go for it, if someone else on our team is going to go for it, but I know the preem is going to make it fast, and it's often the case that the preem makes it fast, someone counters after the preem, and then that is the split of the day. So I just want to be up here in good position. Then I see Alex on my left here starting to wind it up. I know he's a really good sprinter. He's got a really similar power profile to me. He's been hitting the weight room. I've sprinted with him a bunch, and I feel pretty confident he's got it. So I'm just going to try to stay well positioned myself for any counterattack that goes. I'm not going to let these guys just roll away from me, but I'm also not going to go full sprint. And Alex takes it down, the biggest cash preem of the day, maybe the only straight up cash preem of the day, but $100. He also got a $100 preem at Hammerfest, so maybe Alex is like the preem hunter. That's like his deal. But he's got a good gap here, and then I'm up here with these guys. I look back and we have a pretty significant gap behind like the 5 or 6 of us.
Go! Fucking go!
They do not want to go, so let's just watch this slow-mo replay.
It's going to be 2:29. Alex Salias for the Skyway Racing, presented by Domestique Coffee Team. Nice job, Alex.
So at this point, we're about 3/4 of the way through with the race, maybe a little bit more. And the team is down to me, Rob, and Alex. Jordan got caught in that washing machine early on in the race, just got kind of stuck at the back, and gaps were forming in front of him, and he got tailed off. And then Zach pulled himself around halfway. He wasn't feeling good. I think it was allergies getting to him because the pollen was going crazy this day. He was coughing a little bit, and it wasn't COVID, but, just not feeling great. He did come back the next day to the Piedmont Criterium on Sunday and end up 5th. So I think he shook it off and fought through it. He just, just wasn't his day. That happens sometimes. But that's part of why that team plan was in place. Partially because this race is a little bit unpredictable, and like, you're going to lose some people probably. If we had assigned super specific roles and said, like, Jordan, you're supposed to cover all of the moves from lap 10 to lap 15, and then we had lost Jordan and the rest of us don't realize that and we're sitting at the back, that's a recipe for disaster. You can get caught out and just miss the move, and everyone thinks they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So rather than be that specific, we kind of had general team goals and we were all kind of reading the race. For example, Alex just got brought back, so I'm moving back to the front right here just in case something goes to counter him right after he went. I'm really proud of how the team rode today. I think if I have one criticism, it's that, like, maybe I should have taken a rip off the front here. Maybe I should have been a little bit more aggressive. Not just right now, but throughout the whole race. I probably had a couple open doors like this one where I'm sitting here looking at the front, 2 guys took drinks. That would have been a really good time. But I feel like I had a few of those opportunities throughout the race and I never really capitalized on them. Maybe if I had done that, I would not have gotten caught up in the crash because it wouldn't have bunched up. Maybe I would have been in a breakaway. Maybe it would have been strung out behind me. Hindsight is 2020, and that's why I'm doing these videos, is to sort of learn from it. So yeah, I gotta identify those moments and snap even if I'm not feeling great. We're kind of coming into the finale. All right, so here we finally are. This is the crash lap. It's the end of 2 to go. We're about to come into the last lap. A lot of guys on the front realize they don't want to be there anymore. They start looking around and kind of trying to swing off. A lot of guys from the back are trying to move forward because they realize it's the last lap and they're out of position. So we got a lot of people coming together and a lot of people looking around and a lot of people frantic all at the same time, which is never a good combination. So I've watched this a bunch of times from a bunch of different angles. I've looked at pictures. I don't think anything shows it much better than my angle here. On my GoPro angle, watch hard left underneath the power numbers. You'll see a rider in a white and green kit moving up. There's actually another rider to the left of him. You'll see that rider's arm right here. That unsleeved arm is to the left and in front of the rider in white. Now the rider in white should lean his body into that rider. He leans away and hooks bars. That bar hook takes him down. The other rider falls the other way. So then we've got 2 guys wide across the front of the group. There is literally nowhere I could have gone. We're going to the wide shot from there because I cannot watch the rest of that crash in slow-mo anymore. What could have been done to prevent that? Well, people talk about pointy elbows in the finish, and I think that gets misinterpreted a lot as meaning like you should be throwing elbows to the people around you or like a euphemism for being aggressive, but literally having your elbows wide will prevent somebody else from hooking your bars because they are going to make contact with your arm before they can get under your bars. It kind of protects your space in those moments where it's getting a little argy-bargy in the finish like it did there. Another key thing is being aware of when you're in another rider's blind spot like the guy in the white skin suit was. And when that happens, when you're in that blind spot where you're not quite into their peripheral vision but your front wheel is overlapping their back wheel, scoot your body, lean your shoulder toward their body. That way, if they start to come over not knowing that you're there, your shoulder is going to touch their hip rather than your bike touching their bike. That's part of what happened in this instance, was that guy instinctively moved his body away from the rider that was moving left toward him, but left his bike in the same place. So their bikes touched and not their bodies. And basically when your bike touches someone else's bike, you're probably going down. Those 2 guys, it was like they touched front and back wheels at the same time. And I think that's why that crash was so insane. In the wide shot, you can see the guys sprinting for it. Rob from our team had a good instinct to get around that crash, and he rolls in for, I believe, 7th or 8th here, which doesn't sound like a ton, but that is a pretty awesome result. Top 10 in this race. I've been looking for a top 10 in this one in a while. I do feel like this would have been my day, but it is what it is. So, good news, bad news here. The bad news is my scaphoid is broken. I'm going to be out for at least 2 months, which takes me out of Speed Week. I literally asked off for 5 of the 7 Speed Week races on Friday and then broke my arm on Saturday. So it is what it is. It happens. The good news is I already had a huge backlog of footage, so I've got a bunch of stuff that I needed to break down anyway that will be going up on the channel, both from my races previously this season and other guys on the team, and Zwift races that I've been sitting on and haven't broken down. And I'm going to be able to do more live coverage of American Crit Cup stuff. And I'm not going to be totally out of the game. I'm going to be on the trainer a lot more first. So for those of you who like following my Zwift and RGT content, I'm going to be on those a lot more. I'll probably be live on Twitch while I'm doing my rehab. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Subscribe to my Twitch stream if you want to see it live and chat to me over there. Thank you guys for watching, and maybe see you out at the races in July.